Hello everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor channel. Please subscribe to my channel because today we are diving into one of the most shocking and symbolic stories of this war. The phrase, "butchers of Bucha," became infamous around the world after the atrocities committed there during Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The brutality carried out by certain Russian units left scars so deep that Bucha itself became a symbol of Russian war crimes. Months and years passed, but Ukraine did not forget. The story we are unpacking now is about how those very forces, tied to Bucha, were tracked down, targeted, and eliminated, and how Ukraine sent a message not only to Moscow but shockingly as far as 6,500 kilometers away. This was not just a military strike, but also a psychological operation meant to remind the world that justice can reach across borders, distances, and time itself. To summarize the story clearly before diving into the layers, Ukrainian intelligence identified specific Russian commanders and units known for their role in the Bucha massacre. Rather than letting the matter slip into the archives of memory, Kyiv launched operations that sought them out whether they were on Ukrainian soil, stationed deep inside Russia, or even abroad. Reports and open-source evidence suggest targeted strikes, drone campaigns, and coordinated international pressure were all part of this mission. The distance of 6,500 kilometers underlines how Ukraine is sending the message that there is no place too far, no hiding spot safe enough, and no timeline that can erase what happened in Bucha. Justice, in whatever form it takes, will follow. Now when we look at the exterior of this operation, what becomes clear is the precision and symbolism. On the surface, Ukraine's military actions are portrayed as just another strike in a long and brutal war. Drones flying low over Russian defenses, missile attacks finding their mark, sabotage operations taking place in seemingly unreachable territory, this is what the exterior looks like. But unlike ordinary attacks, this was framed as retribution, carefully branded as a direct answer to the war crimes in Bucha. Every strike is not just about destroying equipment, it is a headline, a message carved into steel and fire. From the outside, these missions look daring, dangerous, and spectacular, something that shakes Russia's confidence and stuns observers far away. The exterior shows strength, persistence, and symbolic justice written into military action. Inside the operation, the interior, if we strip away the outside drama, we find something much simpler but also more human. Ukrainian intelligence, networks of informants, digital tracking, and international cooperation quietly fed the information needed. This wasn't just a story of bombs and drones, it was spreadsheets of names, hours of intercepted calls, and teams cross-checking evidence. Soldiers on the ground and analysts in dimly lit rooms pieced together the whereabouts of the butchers of Bucha. It is less dramatic than the explosions themselves, but it's the true heart of the campaign. The interior is short, because it's not about spectacle, it's about cold, methodical intelligence gathering that made the strikes possible. When we move to performance, the question becomes, how well did Ukraine actually execute this plan? The performance was remarkable. Ukraine demonstrated an ability to strike with accuracy across long distances, surpassing what many believed its arsenal was capable of. Drones flying hundreds and thousands of kilometers into Russian territory showed endurance and navigational skill. The weapons delivered not only physical damage but also political shock. Each successful hit reinforced the idea that Ukraine could project power far beyond its borders, something Russia underestimated. The performance was not just military, it was psychological theater, proving Ukraine's resilience and creativity in the face of a larger adversary. The message resonated internationally: this is not a war where crimes will go unchallenged. On safety features, a phrase that feels unusual in the context of war but still applies, we see Ukraine balancing between escalation and responsibility. Ukraine has been careful to avoid direct attacks on civilian populations inside Russia, targeting instead infrastructure, military units, and the individuals directly responsible for atrocities. This precision serves as a kind of safety mechanism, ensuring the strikes are seen not as reckless terror, but as targeted justice. Another safety feature was the use of technology, drones guided by AI, encrypted communication, and counterintelligence shielding operatives from exposure. Ukraine has been practicing restraint while still delivering force, walking a fine line to avoid sparking uncontrollable escalation with NATO allies or with Russia's nuclear rhetoric hanging in the background. Safety here is about legitimacy, about making sure the world sees these strikes not as indiscriminate, but as focused acts of war with moral framing. The unique selling points of this campaign are perhaps the most striking. First, the distance, 6,500 kilometers, is symbolic of reach and determination. No matter how far you think you are from the battlefield, Ukraine can find you. Second, the branding of the operations around the memory of Bucha gave these strikes emotional weight. They were not random, they carried the name of a massacre that had already become part of global memory. Third, the demonstration of new technologies, long-range drones, coordinated strikes, cyber integration, showed that Ukraine is constantly innovating. Where Russia has relied on brute force, Ukraine has turned creativity and international partnerships into its unique advantage. Finally, the ability to merge military action with narrative control, telling the story in a way that inspires allies and intimidates enemies, makes these operations unique compared to ordinary warfare. Now, what about the price? Price here is not just money, but the cost Ukraine pays in effort, risk, and potential blowback. Financially, these long-range drone campaigns and intelligence operations cost millions, though still far less than Russia spends daily on artillery and missiles. The human price is higher. Ukrainian operatives, engineers, and intelligence officers risk everything in silence to make sure the missions succeed. Politically, the price includes the danger of Russian retaliation or international criticism if strikes are misinterpreted. Yet, Ukraine has calculated that the price is worth paying, because the alternative, allowing Bucha to fade into history without justice, would cost far more in moral terms. For Russia, the price has been humiliation, exposure, and the gradual loss of the illusion that it can act with impunity. In conclusion, the elimination of the so-called butchers of Bucha and Ukraine's ability to send a message 6,500 kilometers away is more than just another military story. It is about memory, justice, and reach. Ukraine has shown that atrocities will not be forgotten, that those responsible cannot hide, and that modern warfare is not just fought with tanks and missiles but with narratives, intelligence, and symbolism. For the world, this serves as a reminder that even in the fog of war, accountability can stretch across borders and years. For Russia, it is a chilling sign that actions have consequences, and for Ukraine, it is a rallying cry that strengthens the resolve of its people and allies. This story is not just about one strike or one operation. It is about rewriting the rules of war, where crimes once thought unpunishable are now met with targeted, deliberate justice.